All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Happy New Year. It's our first meeting back. Welcome everybody to the January 14th, 2026 City of Edina Planning Commission meeting. We are grateful you are here. To those who are here in person and as well as those tuning in remotely, we're thankful for your curiosity, your participation, and your feedback. It is vital as we navigate this process of change in Edina, specifically regarding the ways in which we'd like to use our land. So tonight we do not have any public hearings. Instead, we have two reports and recommendations, which follow kind of a similar process, but we'll get into that later. Regardless, the city is committed to hearing your feedback. So for any reports, recommendations, public hearings, or future or past proposals, head to the city's engagement website, www.bettertogetheredina.org, and there you'll find anything related to land use and change. There's a nice map that you can find what's going on right around where you live and helps you engage closer to home that way. There is another note just for security reasons. So we're gonna, if you'd like to speak during community comment period, the process has changed a little. We talked about this the last time. If you do not want to share your name and address, you can bring and fill out a speaker registration card with your address and hand it to the senior communications coordinator, Lauren. Hi. Before speaking, if you're okay sharing that information while it's televised, just you'll head up to the podium and I'll give you the cue when we get to that period. The typical process that you can expect tonight is we'll call the meeting to order, do a roll call, an approval of tonight's agenda as well as the prior meeting minutes. Then we'll open it to community comment period. And then no public hearings, but then two reports, recommendations, and then we close with chair, member, and staff comments. So without further ado, we'll call the meeting to order.
Commissioner Just.
Then roll call.
Sorry.
Someone's excited.
Yeah. Commissioner Just. Commissioner Bornstein.
Here.
Commissioner Felt.
Here.
Commissioner Hanneman. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Padilla.
Here.
Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Commissioner Alkire.
Here.
And Chair Bennett.
Here. Next, we have the approval of tonight's meeting agenda.
A motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Next, we have the approval of the prior meeting minutes from December 10th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right, next we have the community comment period. Similar to a public hearing, this is your chance to testify about an issue, but one that's not on tonight's agenda. So you must be here and present. You can come up to either podium. You have 3 minutes to speak. When the light turns green, you may begin. When it turns red, your time's up and we'll ask you to wrap up your comments. I'll just reiterate the note that was shared earlier. Please state your full name and address, but if you do not want to divulge your full address while televised, you can present the speaker registration card to Lauren over there before speaking. Is anyone here for community comment? All right, seeing some heads shaking side to side, we will move on from that. So next, we will move to our reports and recommendations. The first of which is a sketch plan review for 6016 Vernon Avenue, an EV charging station. Just so you're aware of what this process includes. Unlike a public hearing, this is a chance for a potential applicant before they put in a formal application to provide an idea or a sketch plan to the commission and staff. Staff puts it together in a presentation here, and we allow the applicant to provide their own presentation. We'll kind of exchange back and forth with questions, comments, recommendations, And this is our chance as a body to provide non-binding feedback to the applicant. Again, this is different than a public hearing. Should they be interested in moving forward after this and potentially tweak their plan based off of our and the city council's feedback, they would then put forward a formal application, and that would trigger the public hearing process, where then you would get to testify about this matter. So without further ado, Carrie Teague, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. This is a site you're all familiar with. It's the Keys Auto Body on Vernon, just west of City Hall. We've had 3 projects, probably in the last 3 or 4 years, that have come through Planning Commission and City Council and have been denied. Just to run through some of that history quickly, the first was for a restaurant. It was an expansion of the existing building, and it had rooftop dining. That was denied. The second was a proposal by Green Drop. It was a donation drop-off center. That also was denied. And the last was a small restaurant remodel of the existing building for a pizza restaurant. That also was denied. The request before you is for an electric vehicle charging station. Part of the issues that we've struggled with those previous requests, and more or less with this one as well, the site is guided PCD 4, Planned Commercial District, where only gas stations, car washes are considered permitted uses in that district. With this use, it's a permitted use. However, the comprehensive plan, as you recall, guides this site for medium density residential. You could get, based on the density that's allowed there, about 4 units. We've had, over the last couple of years, some residential developers take a look at the site. You recall we did have a sketch plan for that memory care facility that came through, and they just couldn't make the numbers work either, so no formal request was made. The big difference here is we've got a use that's actually permitted by zoning, but we still have to rectify that comprehensive plan. So a gas station is defined as a principal building and accessory structure used for the sale of motor fuels. So again, it would be a permitted use. But any formal application, we still have to bring the comprehensive plan into compliance with the zoning. So likely neighborhood node, that's our smallest district. A site plan review would be required, and there would be a number of variances. You recall the shape of this lot is triangular. You really can't get anything on the site without the need for a variance. Most of the variances would be really just resurfacing the parking lot, the canopy, the pump stations. We'll take a look at a site plan here in a minute, but it's those setbacks to those uses that would require variances. So looking at our neighborhood node land use description, it's described as, in general, small to moderate scale commercial, residential, or mixed use building serving primarily the adjacent neighborhood. So that's the most likely category that we would pursue here. Other neighborhood nodes in the city have similar uses. The 54th and France area, we've got a gas station and an auto body repair, or auto repair. The Valley View Wooddale area, we had a gas station there. It's now the town hall station. And 70th and Cahill, we had a gas station there. It's now an auto repair site. So quick look at the proposed site plan. They would resurface the parking lot, and the charging stations would be along the north lot line and the south lot line, and there would be a canopy over the top. So here are some examples of what the project might look like. These are examples of other stations that they have across the country. So it would primarily be a waiting area. It would be remodeled, the existing building, for a waiting area, and then you can see examples of the canopy. They've provided 3 different floor plan options that we can discuss. Again, the primary use is the lounge area for customers to wait while their car is charging. Some of them have a little mini convenience store, could be employee operated or potentially self-serve, could be vending machines. There's also a potential for some tenant space. This would be a small space. It would be about 800 square feet. I'll let the applicant go through that and provide those options as part of their presentation. So again, looking at the zoning compliance, it's the canopy, the pump islands, the parking lot itself. that would require those variances with a formal application. So with that, our applications are out, our applicant is out of state, so they are with us virtually tonight. So I will close there, and if we could go to our applicants, and they will present in a little more detail.
Thank you, Carrie. Got an infinite screen going on.
Can anyone hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
I do have their PowerPoint if that works. I'm not sure if he'll be able to present it looking at the screen there.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear us?
Yeah, hey Justin, I can hear you.
All right, you can hear me? Declan, I
Yes,
hear
sir.
you. Okay.
Oh, here. Okay, can you hear us now?
I can hear it. Yep.
There we go.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
Love technology.
We are ready to hear your presentation if you'd like to begin.
Oh, all right. Fantastic. Declan, you got?
Yep. I will take it from here. So somebody else has got our slides. First off, just a little introduction. We couldn't hear anything up until this point, so I'm not sure, what we've already covered, but Declan Wilkerson here, with the Iona team, an architect and site designer for us, and I'm here with Justin Nickel, Kimley Horn engineer. They are our design partner for this project. So just launching into our presentation here. First slide. Iona is a joint venture of 8 of the largest auto manufacturers in the world. You can go to the next slide. So, like I said, born from 8 auto manufacturers with the mission to build a nationwide charging network that puts the customer in the center. Our mission is to provide full network coverage that drivers need, the reliability that they deserve, all while looking to provide amenities that they crave. Next slide, please. Next slide, that's just a little bit more about the automakers themselves. Yeah, here we go. So as you can see in this image, this is a look at what our network looks like today. And if you'll click to the next slide. Here's a graphic that shows kind of the reach that we have as of now. So as of now, we got about 86 sites live, I think, as of today, across the country. And these orange dots kind of represent the major MSAs that we're looking to build in, as well as connecting corridors that are starting to branch throughout the country. And we're very close to being able to provide a coast-to-coast service using the Iona rechargery stations alone. You can head to the next slide. The Iona charging experience and kind of what sets us apart from others. We provide 400 kilowatt dual port charging units. So that's CCS plug types and NACS, meaning that we can charge just about any EV out there. We like to provide amenities. We like to call them pit stops with purpose, and provide restrooms, food and vending access, Wi-Fi, canopies over our chargers, and sometimes even more. And like I was stating earlier, nationwide network is about 800 bays as of today and counting, or in 4,000 bays contracted. And we're aiming to establish 30,000 charging bays by the end of the year 2030. Next slide, please. As I was saying, this is a little bit more about kind of who we are and the charging experience. Like I said, NACS and CCS plug types are offered at all Iona charging stations, meaning that, just about any EV can pull up and charge. And we accept pretty much all forms of, virtual payments. Next slide, please. So here's a look at one of our rechargeries. This is a real built site where you can see kind of the branding and get a bit more of a feel for, who we are and what we like to deploy. You'll see our charging units there, the blue and orange, and then that is one of our standard canopies that goes over the top of the chargers. What we're planning for this site as of now is 14 fast charging bays. So that'll be 7 chargers, each one serving two parking stalls for a total of 14. Like I said, those are all going to be the fast charging 400 kilowatt chargers, the branded dispensers, as we like to call them, with the canopy, and then some trash can window cleaning stations. And then we are going to, as of now, we are planning to retrofit the existing building on the site and to be kind of a customer lounge experience with the potential to work with a local business, bring in a tenant to run their business out of the remaining portion of the building. So next slide. This is a look at our mini canopies, which we're thinking about deploying at the site as well. We could kind of go either route, depending on the setbacks and site conditions. That's just a rendering of what those would look like. Next slide, please. This is another site that we have in the works in Connecticut. You can see it's another example of us taking a previously utilized building. It was a car service bay, and we're going to take it and retrofit it very similar to how we're proposing we do this site. And there we've got the chargers and the canopies over the top. Next slide, please. And then here, something that you guys have just seen. This is our proposed site plan as of now. And maybe Justin, you'd like to jump in here and speak a little bit more as to what we're doing.
As Declan mentioned, so my name is Justin Nickel. I'm with Kimley Horn. We are a consultant and engineering firm on behalf of Iona. So we're proposing to install 7 chargers in 14 bays, charging bays, overhead canopy. Again, as Declan mentioned, we'd be willing to kind of work with y'all if the overhead canopy is not something that y'all are interested in. We can also do mini canopies as well. That would work along with the setback situations, knowing that we obviously have some variances that we have to go after as well. Let's see. Other than that, not much more. I mean, again, retrofitting the existing building structure to allow for either a lounge for customers to while their vehicles are charging, to sit, relax, vending machines, bathrooms. We kind of are leaving that option open to y'all to discuss with you guys to what you guys might be interested in doing there. But again, ideally, it would be, again, a location just specifically for the customers that are charging there. Other than that, I don't know. Outside of what you already said, Declan, I think you kind of covered everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to pick up where Justin was saying, we could go a couple different ways with the building retrofit. As these mock-ups show, we like to do a customer lounge experience with vending machines and restrooms, as Justin mentioned, and then we can leave majority of the building open for a future tenant. Hopefully, partner with a local business to be run out of the other half of the building, or we could go the route of having a mini convenience store. We've deployed that as well, where we have a completely autonomous experience with an Amazon just walk out convenience store, where basically you walk in, you prepay, you walk in, bunch of cameras on the ceiling that track your movements, whatever you pick up and walk out with, you're then charged for. So that's an option that we could go with no staff. 24/7 autonomous experience. And then another way we could go would just be having the whole building be kind of, nice, comfortable lounge space, plenty of room for customers who come to charge their car to, park, charge, wait, go in, grab a snack, stretch their legs, that sort of thing. And the next slide will show you our Apex location here in North Carolina, as well as our Garner. So there, the central picture. If you go back, yep, here we go. You can see we retrofitted the interior of a gas station that was about 100 years old. Retrofitted the interior to be that customer lounge experience we're talking about. The picture in the top right, that's another look at that location, the vending machines and the bathrooms down the hall. And then the picture in the bottom right, that's a different spot, but again, retrofitted a gas station to be a nice, spacious customer lounge. On the right-hand side, we got, coffee bar, and then kind of center, it's difficult to see in that image, but, right there in the center is that Amazon just walk out technology for the convenience store piece. So to kind of bring it all together, you can go to the last slide. I believe this is the last slide. So how our vision aligns with the city. This will be an investment of about $1 to $2 million or so when it's all said and done. And, what we're looking to do there is provide public infrastructure that aligns with, the city's goals of livability, sustainability, giving back to the people, with the evolution of the EV charging. Like we were speaking on earlier, we can hire people, maintenance contractors to come out and keep the site clean, EV technicians to come out, work on the chargers, and then the sustainability aspect, the autonomous building, EV charging, reducing greenhouse gases, bolstering the health of the community, and then, the press opportunities to highlight this new service in town. This would be kind of a big plus high site for us. We don't have too many plus high sites actually built yet, but we have a lot in the works. And it would be, a really good addition to the city. So I believe that is the last slide. Yep, and there's contact information for Emily Building. She's our utility and policy engagement associate. Works with the cities, works with the power companies all the time. Working to get things done efficiently for us here at IANA. So that pretty much wraps up the conclusion or the presentation there.
All right, thank you very much. Can you hear us?
Yes, we certainly can.
Yes, we can now.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. So this is a sketch plan, so I'd open it to the rest of the commission for questions, comments, feedback. And this is open also to staff too, since we kind of merged both of the presentations. And if you maybe want to start with questions and we can consolidate kind of our feedback and recommendations till the end, maybe let's do that. Who wants to start? Yeah, you got a question or comment?
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay, I have a few questions. Tell me a little bit about the canopies. If you like to have canopies over every pump, do you call them? And the general heights of the canopies, heights of like the individual canopies or heights of a overall canopy. Do you have standards for those?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dustin.
exactly. I was just going to say the standard height of the canopies typically are about 15 feet tall. And that's for the larger canopy that covers over everything. Again, we're trying to kind of provide a little bit of a different experience than what's out there currently right now with EV charging. If you've seen them and if you have EV chargers, you typically might pull into a location that, they've got the chargers and whatnot. But IANA, what they're trying to provide again is that a little bit more of a luxurious kind of experience, I guess, in that providing an overhead canopy for protection from the elements and additional lighting on these sites as well too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a few more questions, but go ahead. Justin, you had additional info? Or?
No, not much else.
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I was gonna jump in and say, yeah, for the mini canopies, that kind of go over each individual, charger dispenser, we like to call them. Those are about 10 feet, so a little less, obstructive than the standard canopy. They feel a lot lighter. Um, but they still provide, that overhead coverage for our customers who, if it's pouring rain or a really hot day or snowing, whatever it might be, when they get up there to pay at the dispenser and plug the car in, definitely is a welcome amenity to have, coverage overhead.
Okay, thank you. And do you like to have a canopy over each pump, right, to protect the pump? Just a question. 'Cause
Yes,
I'm not
ma'am.
used to these. Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Ideally, we would like to have dispensers covered. Of course, with setbacks and easements and variances in the whole 9 yards, that it can be difficult to deploy them, but we always try to go the route of having coverage over our dispensers for sure.
okay. And tell me a little bit about your thoughts for the sign, for signage.
For signage, yes, ma'am. Usually signage, as seen in the pictures for the canopy, it'll be like a Iona logo on the fascia of the canopy, as well as some wayfinding signage. And then for the building, again, we're still working through with our architects, how that will come together, but there'll be some branding on the building. But as far as the canopy, those will probably be the biggest signs, and we like to do it on the fascia. We've
Yeah.
proposed and built in the past having an Iona logo sign that kind of goes on top of the canopy. But if that's going to be an issue, we can definitely implement it on the fascia instead.
Yeah, I was going to add to that, Declan, and that's a good point. I know one of the pictures that we had showed the signage on top of the canopy extending above.
Right.
And most recently, our canopy and our signage has been an integrated lit fascia on the actual canopy itself. So it's not as it's not extending above, it's not extending outwards. It's actually part of the canopy, so it's not as intrusive.
Thank you, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And I have one more question. How is the lounge accessed? And by extension, how would the little convenience store be accessed?
Yeah, good question. The lounge can be accessed. Usually, I think what we do is we have like a QR code, that's posted on the door, and a user can scan the QR code, and it'll take them to a portal, where they'll be able to access, on their phone. They'll tap a button, and the door that they are trying to open will unlock. That could be front door, restroom doors. They basically have to, scan that QR code and it'll allow them in. Um, and it's very similar for the convenience store. They'll once they're in the building, they have access to the building. They will not be able to go into the convenience store piece if that's a direction that we decide to go, without prepaying. And then, like I said, the Amazon just walk out technology handles the rest. And then when they walk out, they're charged for whatever they walked out with. And the good thing is that we actually here have the ability to, if there's any people that aren't Ionic customers that enter the building and cause trouble, we do have the ability to blacklist those devices. So we'll have access to security cameras, and any negative activity that may go down, we have the ability to see exactly who it was, and work to prohibit those people from entering again.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question, just because my question was kind of the opposite way. There are a lot of kids that live over there that have to get on their bikes and cross a busy road to go get a soda or something. I wanted to know, like, if a 15-year-old wanted to grab his bike and go get a pop, could he, from the convenience store? Or do they have to be
Right.
customers of the pumps?
Yeah, great question. That would be the case. They would be able to get in.
They would not?
They would.
They would, okay. If they had a
Yes,
credit,
ma'am.
if they had a credit card and a phone?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. If they have a payment method, then in theory, they would be able to access the convenience store for sure.
Thank you.
I had a couple for Director Teague, actually. Do you remember, I was just thinking, I was listening to you kind of like list off the other proposals that came in front of us, and I was just wondering, do you remember for like the dining and the green drop and the pizza and maybe even the memory care, and maybe you don't remember, but do you remember, were any of those projects talking about, or those, needing a zoning, a rezoning, and if not, and just separately, were any of them kind of contemplating a comp plan amendment? It would just, I think, be helpful to remember all the different changes that were proposed and maybe what we thought about those as we considered this one.
All three needed a rezoning and all three needed a comprehensive plan change.
Do you remember
This
what
one doesn't need a rezoning.
do you remember what the proposed comp plan change was for each?
Yeah, it was to this neighborhood node. I believe with the green drop, we thought about creating a new district,
Okay.
a new land use category in the comprehensive plan to just be more specific to that use. We could do something like that here.
I was just curious. And then the memory care, did we even talk about that needing a comp plan?
That did as well, because
Would that have been neighborhood note, or would that have been something different?
it would have needed a rezoning. Yeah,
Okay.
and the density wasn't an issue because it was a memory care, and so the Met Council doesn't consider the number of units in the density calculation.
Okay.
But they just needed a rezoning.
Okay. And then I guess just one question for the applicant. Have you guys thought about who would, I don't know, use this and who your target customer would be? Is it people from the neighborhood? Is it people from around the metro? I mean, what are your thoughts on who you're thinking would predominantly use this?
Yes, sir. I would say, definitely targeted towards people in the larger metro. Just that's where we found statistically that there's a larger density of electric vehicles, people who are passing through the area, but absolutely anybody who lives in the city and around the residential area who has an electric vehicle and does not have the means to charge at their own home would definitely be included in that target demographic.
And on top of that, Declan, right? Like if you are a local resident that has a electric vehicle and you're charging at home, the fast chargers that we also offer are going to charge a lot quicker in situations too. So if you're headed out of town for a quick meeting or something like that, you've got the opportunity to stop by at the local rechargery to hit for 20 minutes and boom, your car is charged that much quicker than anything that maybe you forgot to plug it in at night, right? And you live down the street, you forgot to plug your car in or something like that.
Right.
So it's great for that residential area as well.
Right. Yeah. And it's also important to note that across our network, that's nationwide. We find that about 60% of our customers are repeat customers. And we have a very, very high percentage of, that first plug-in success rate. So, your first time using an Iona rechargery, we have a very high percentage of people who report that their experience was flawless. And, they become part of that repeat customer statistic.
Okay, thanks.
Questions? Yeah, comments?
2 questions for Director Teague first. So just for clarity on process, if hypothetically this project didn't need any variances, would we still have to change a comprehensive plan? Or is it any permit wouldn't make us do that, or is it just because of the variances?
I believe we need a comprehensive plan change because we need to bring our zoning into compliance with what the comprehensive plan says in terms of the use of the property. So it's more of a city issue because it is allowed by the zoning.
Right.
but we need to bring the comp plan into compliance with the zoning, or vice versa.
But just say, in that case, would the applicant have needed to pay and go through this process? Or I acknowledge that it would be good for us to do that, but would that be on the applicant or would that be on us?
It's more on us.
Okay, okay. And then secondly, are there any constraints in the code on what that third-party tenant could or could not do?
Yeah, so if, let's say if it was a restaurant, I mean, we're talking small scale here.
Yep.
So I think we'd probably need a different zoning. I think all the uses have to be, if we're calling it a gas station or a EV station, which falls under the definition of a gas station in our code, it would just have to be, that's the primary use. It would have to be accessory to that, like a convenience store.
Okay, so probably not a dry cleaner, say.
Right.
But because I think there's some parking issues attached to that. 'Cause it seems like most
there
of the
would
parking
be.
space is charging space. So you don't want a lot of drive-up customers that aren't charging their cars.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. One question for the applicant. Is there typically a difference between the amount of light generated by the full-size canopies compared to the mini canopies?
I would say yes. I would say that the full size larger canopy definitely outputs more light than the smaller mini canopies, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen, for your presentation. Just a couple of quick questions on my part. Just to clarify, Commissioner Alkire, currently the comp plan and the zoning are in conflict with one another. So either one or both need to be changed or for whatever ends up there. My question specifically to you, are all of your stations either currently operating or planned operating 24 hours?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you given any consideration, or is it possible to do anything less than 24 hours?
No, ma'am. I don't. That doesn't really align. With the overall ION mission for some sites to be 24/7 and then others not to be 24/7. That
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay, and with that too, lighting issues in terms of the full canopy and how that affects the neighborhood. And I don't know if you've looked into that at all, or what kind of issues you have in the places like the Connecticut one that you showed us that looks like it's, adjacent to a residential neighborhood. Have you dealt with that at all? Has that come up?
Oh, you're talking specifically like the canopy with the lighting?
Yes.
That's a good question. I believe that we have, but fortunately, when we go through these designs with our canopy vendor and our lighting vendor, we do have the ability to control the output of light. So like I was saying, those mini canopies will definitely output less light than the large, full overhead canopy. But in either scenario, we do have the ability to control, the output.
And is there any internet enhancement that would be required if you've got potentially 14 people sitting in the convenience area, all wanting to use internet?
I mean, we would provide, enough Wi-Fi coverage to make sure that if that was like max capacity, that everybody would still be able to, have a seamless experience.
How long would it take to charge? I don't know. Do I have to tell you what kind of vehicle or?
No, ma'am.
How long does it take
on
to
average
charge a
will
car?
take about, it'll take about 20 minutes, give or take.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
Fast charging, yes, ma'am.
And in any of these, do you end up having a line? Do you have people waiting, or what's the usage like?
No, ma'am. I mean, we get, a lot of our sites, especially, in these kind of metro areas, they get utilized quite often, but we have not run into issues where, there's queuing and there's cars stacked up around, around the block. It's usually very, very seamless experience for drivers to pull up, charge and leave. There's not a lot of queuing that happens.
And you anticipate having somebody there 24 hours? Did you say that, an employee?
No, ma'am. In fact, the opposite. With the Ayana Lounge, we like to do completely autonomous. All of our other sites that we've done a retrofit for are completely autonomous and don't have an Ayana employee running the lounge. If we were to, partner with a local business and have a different tenant in part of the building, then that would be, kind of up to their discretion of, what the business is and what their hours are. But the Ayana side, autonomous.
So my question really goes to maintenance and cleanup and things like that.
Yeah, we will partner with like a trash or waste contractor that will probably come and clean the site, empty the trash cans and whatnot once a week. Same with the bathrooms, clean the bathrooms once a week or so, maybe a couple more times depending on usage.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you for your presentation tonight. I have a question based on that presentation. The map you showed was a national map, showed basically along the freeways and thoroughfares of our country. And Commissioner Bornstein mentioned a little bit about the site as being, this site is really local, and what's the use for it? It would, in my mind, again, it would be more local use. But again, you're promoting cross-country travel and things like that with the EVs. So I'm just wondering, you do have a site you mentioned like this. Are there multiple other sites you're looking at that are similar to this, that are in a, this is really a unique site because it's all residential.
Right.
All around it, as you know. It is on a major thoroughfare, but it's not on a freeway or anything like that. So,
Right.
is that, I obviously know the site, so you're anticipating not a whole bunch of travel through the city to get to this site with national, people going across country per se, and
Yes, sir.
more local. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir. We have an entire, site acquisition team that all day, every day, they're looking at sites all across the country and they're scoring them based on an internal algorithm. So when this site was, first, being considered, it's one of those where we have other sites in Minnesota that are more, on these, just off these major highways or in a more densely, populated area. That are more standard, really just kind of chargers out there in the parking lot with a canopy over the top. But we're also looking to expand our network of what we call plus high sites, and those plus high sites are where we take an existing property with an existing building, we look to retrofit it. And those ones, sometimes they're in a bigger metro area and get a lot more usage. Other times they're in a smaller, more local network, but to expand our portfolio of plus high amenity based sites, like this one, we're really looking to be a part of the community and provide kind of like a neighborhood recharger experience, where it's known and it's used and it's enjoyed by the locals, and anybody else who's passing through or wants to come check it out is absolutely more than welcome. But this one would be for sure kind of local neighborhood rechargery oriented first. And that's exactly what our Apex location out here in North Carolina is.
All right, thank you. Another question would be related to the tenant space. You had three different options. You look at a convenience store, like you mentioned, the Amazon type of ready store, just a lounge, and I don't know, there were three different options. But with the tenant space, the only reason I bring it up, the tenant space seems to be, very there's a lack of parking on this site. So, I mean, having
Right.
other people come in and use it to go to that store, there's literally no other parking or very little other parking on this site. So that would be a concern. I guess I would guide you toward doing maybe one of the other sites. I mean, I understand Meriwether mentioned the, a kid running up on his bike and whatnot, but that wouldn't be an issue. But having people come in to park and go grab something from the C-store seems to be a challenge just for lack of parking alone.
Right.
So I might guide you that direction, but again, it's your, when you come forward with what you want to think about that a little bit.
Yes, sir, for sure. Like I said, those are, we're still working out what we can and can't do with our architects. We just wanted to make sure that, you guys were aware of the different directions we could go. I agree with you on this one that parking would be tight. And, some of these plus high sites, we like to partner with local businesses. It's always something that we're looking to do and kind of really be a part of the community. But, some sites we totally recognize that, just due to space constraints, it's not possible. And we might have to go the route of the convenience store, the full lounge. But, either way, that wouldn't be a problem for us. We'll design with that in mind for sure.
And also the lighting's been brought up a few different times. Again, with it being a fully residential neighborhood, I would guide you toward being conservative on the lighting and making sure either it goes off when there's no cars there, or a minimal amount of lighting being pushed across the beyond the site anyway. And then
Yes, sir.
the other point is I had is people usually, it takes somebody stops at a gas station. Traditional filling station would take maybe 5-10 minutes either to run in, gas up, run in and grab what they want and leave. You mentioned 20 minutes, and that's it's maybe double the length of time, maybe 3 to 4 times the amount of time somebody traditionally would stop. So they might have time to stop at the facility you're at, or go take a walk around the area. There's a park nearby. I just things like that. I'm wondering about, again, with the lack of parking for other folks, I'm wondering about the fencing security around the site. Is the only access going to be off of Vernon? And is that, would there be fencing to not allow basically, you could walk obviously around the fence, but would you only be allowed on that one, off of that one street is the main question. What I'm getting at is there's Eden Prairie Road is right on the back side of this lot, on the north side of this lot. I don't think the neighbors would like a lot of parking there and have people running in and grabbing, things from the convenience store. And it's just a thought I had.
Yeah, understood. You make a good point. Usually, especially in a situation like this where that definitely could be something that happens, we'd probably take a look at adding, some sort of vegetation or even like a Trex fencing across like the back side of the site, just to kind of, deter people from parking and walking across the street. But, still in the early phases of this one and, working those things out, but definitely something we'll take note of and make sure we address.
And then lastly, and real quickly, the no one on site situation, how is the safety of the site and the users? Obviously have cameras, are those monitored 24/7? And I just wondering about the safety and security of the site and the users.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where the lighting comes into play. If somebody pulls up, almost on empty and they need to charge their car, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, that's where we want the lighting to come in to make sure that, the site's well lit and they feel safe to, park and charge their car. With the building, like I was saying, security cameras, we have the ability to monitor those closely and, blacklist anybody who, comes to the site to do something other than charge their car and grab a snack. And we also have a 24/7 call center, for troubleshooting and for, any security or things that, people take note of that might not be right, we have a 24/7 call center, that people can contact and let them know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you again for the presentation. I have a couple of questions here, and hopefully I'll be coherent. A lot of great questions were asked earlier. I'll see if I could flush out more of the operation, just so we understand what that looks like, and then just be sensitive to the impact that it might have. So just a couple of questions, so I could understand. I think you mentioned that it takes about 20 minutes roughly to charge a vehicle fully. But that's just the charging. How long does someone typically linger or hang around after their vehicle is fully charged? Is it just a normal practice to go in, sit down, relax for a few minutes, come back? Like, how long does one vehicle stay at a site when they visit?
Right. Yeah, I would say it's pretty much aligned with however long it takes your car to charge. These new age EVs, they basically have an app for everything. They're connected to your phone. You get, live updates on the charge status of your car. So, people come in on empty and they plug their car in, they walk to the store, they're chilling in the lounge, using the restroom, grabbing a snack, they're likely getting, live updates on when their car is ready to go. And when they get that notification saying, hey, your car is ready, they're pretty much out of there. So I'd say 20, 30 minutes or so on average.
Okay. And, given some of these statistics when you guys did the modeling, and let's just say Monday through Friday per day, how many units or vehicles will be coming through in a given week? In 100 cars for this location you would calculate per day, or what's the volume range look like?
That's a good question. It really varies on location, but I would say, we got 14 bays total, and currently we track, across our network about one maybe two uses per bay, per site. So if we got 14 bays, probably 14 cars, maybe 20 cars a day cycling in and out.
So for a long period of time, there'd just be empty bays sitting there, right?
Yes, sir. You make a good point. But as the Iona network and brand grows, we really believe that number will change. It will never be as much as like a gas station where there's, you know, pumps and you might drive up and like never have a pump. But we definitely believe that, here in the next 3, 4, 5 years, utilization will absolutely go up, for sure.
So it might start low and increase over time as it gets more recognized, as people learn about it.
Yes, sir. And as more people, begin driving EVs, we're already seeing those numbers start to skyrocket. So,
is it like a minimum volume that would keep you guys profitable to operate there, or how do you think about viability for the site?
right. We do have internal targets here, for utilization rates. It varies site to site, but usually when we do, these ground leases, we, they're usually 10 to 15-year leases, and when we build something, we're looking to be there to stay, and our internal targets will increase as the years go on, kind of like we were just talking about. But in terms of how many uses per day do we need to stay profitable, I would say it's a little too soon for this site specifically, to kind of make an accurate estimate there.
Gotcha. A question came up earlier about queuing and the risk of that. And I don't have an EV vehicle, but I'm guessing if I were driving one, maybe you could see on a dash the different sites that are located around the country. Does it indicate if there are free bays that you could use, like through an app or something like that? Like, how would you know that it's not full?
Yeah. Yeah, that is all coming soon. We're developing an app and, integration with, like I said, founded by these 8 auto manufacturers, all of whom are, producing and scaling their EV production rates. And we're going to have, just like, you get in a Tesla and you're low on charge, your Tesla will take you to a Tesla charging station. That is what we are working towards with the 8 auto manufacturers that we are funded by.
So it's not there yet, but something in the future that's coming where you could be notified.
Yes, sir.
No. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And in Declan, there is PlugShare, right? Like, I mean, it's not specific
Yep.
tie right now, but PlugShare is it's an online or an app or a online database that identifies locations for EV charging. I myself do not have an EV as well, but it's got the ability to identify locations in the area that you're targeting, so that you can charge up.
That's absolutely right. PlugShare for sure is our biggest. That's how people who drive EVs are finding us currently. Just Googling. We're kind of making waves in the EV scene. People are excited about the Iona brand. Googling and looking for where there's a recharger near them. And if you own an EV, then you definitely use the PlugShare app. And it'll notify you of sites around you and which ones are open, which ones aren't. So that's kind of what we rely off of right now until our OEM integration is fully there.
Gotcha. A couple more questions here. Does the rates differ by time of day? I know some folks who charge at home usually set a timer when the rates are lowest at night versus when it's heavy load on the electrical grid in the daytime. Would the rates be different depending on when folks show up to charge?
Right now, rates are pretty fixed. As the network grows, as we get more data, as the company expands, it's definitely something that we thinking about, and we have people who internally are devoted to that kind of research, time variable pricing or things like that. But for now, it's pretty fixed, and we just kind of monitor the market and see how things are shaping up.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is, you might have low volume in the daytime, but higher volume at night. If folks the rates would be lower in the nighttime.
I would say time of day. Again, kind of just depends, but I would guess that nighttime is just going to be lower volume, just because a lot of people, especially in a residential heavy area, a lot of these people will probably have a method of charging their vehicle at home. But that's not to say people aren't passing through the area and really need to charge. It's just kind of one of those, time will tell, and it varies site to site.
Just to jump on that, Quincy, I presume like a lot of your competitors, you guys have an idling fee?
That is a good question.
At most places, when your vehicle is done charged, you continue to get billed after, they give you a grace period.
Yeah.
But it's so that you don't park overnight and make it your personal garage spot. So there are penalties then for people who are there longer than their car needs them to be there.
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point. We currently don't have that, and we really haven't experienced anybody doing that. But we absolutely have the ability to put that in place if we notice that, hey, people are just coming to park and hang out, all through the night, something's going on here. We definitely do have the ability to make adjustments as needed.
Gotcha. When I think about the other charging locations nearby, I know Target has a charging bay that we reviewed and approved some time ago, and Target also has coffee shops and stuff on inside, right? So, when you look at the variety of options that a person would have either at your site or at Target, they'll probably go to Target. And the Target bays aren't always full, right? So it shouldn't be an issue. I guess I'm just trying to work through here just the business model, and if this is going to be something that would be sustainable, right, compared to the other options that a driver would have.
Right.
In the city of Edina, I would assume that folks with electric vehicles would probably have some type of charging system at their homes. And so the clients that might be coming through here would most likely be folks passing through. And, when I looked at your map, this might be your most northern site on the map compared to where you have your other businesses located. East, west, I could see north, south in California, but in the Midwest, this might be the most northern site. So I'm thinking someone who has to go to Duluth and back would probably be coming through here. So that's probably who your target market might be. Some questions came up about lighting, which I thought was a really good point. We, as a city, on France Avenue, just installed the E-line and those bus stops, which are really nice, are like 12 to 15 feet tall. And what that triggered essentially was neighbors who live right adjacent to that having to get a variance to build a fence up to 10 feet tall to, not be, for the lighting not to encroach into their property. We're pushing this property so close to the property line where there's almost zero variance from the property line. I'm guessing that the lighting would impact neighbors and it might trigger another action to say, hey, could I get a variance to build a higher fence, right? So just the lighting piece, I think, is something that you have to really think about. And then with the 24 hours, right? Like, I don't know if it's like a car club, a group, people coming together, but how do you prevent folks from blasting music late at night, hanging out in the lot? Like, car culture, I think people sometimes would go into the convenience store, but sometimes just hang out in their cars and hang out. So what's your customer behavior style like? Are they folks that, tailgate essentially, or do you see your customer base as those who would go in the lounge actually and spend time in there?
Right.
Just think about the impact to the neighborhood with late night charging, if that could ever be an issue.
No, absolutely. Our customer base thus far has proved to be, people who will, park their car and sit in it the entire time and charge, or, if we do offer an amenities building, they will park, charge their car and, go into the lounge until their car finishes charging. We really have not had any instances where, people come and hang out at our sites and don't do anything other than, cause problems. And then the people who do use our sites are, very, very respectful thus far. And they respect the site, they respect the building, and they don't cause problems.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's close to the end here for me on questions. I certainly have some thoughts there, but with
Yes, sir.
nobody being on site to monitor, it's all remote monitoring, right? No security guard to say, hey guys, turn it down. There's none of that. So it's really on the goodwill of the folks that come there is what's what we have to weigh and the impact to the community. So just things to think about as you look at your business model and your customer model.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Fair point. And, kind of going back to what I was saying, Ayana, as a company, anywhere that we deploy a site, especially one that, is more amenities based and has a building and we're trying to, kind of draw people in, we are willing and able to work with the city. So in an event that, we noticed that, kind of repeat offenders kept coming back and causing problems, tailgating like you're speaking about, or, utilizing the lounge for something that it's not supposed to be. We can absolutely pivot and deploy some sort of security if needed. Absolutely. We will work with you guys on that.
I have just a couple more, just real quick ones, hopefully. Just thinking more for the folks listening in or potentially watching this later. I don't have an EV. I'm not that familiar with what it takes and everything. I'm just wondering, are there any radiation concerns of the charging stations having so many close together, or is there noise or anything produced from are there fans on these to keep them cool, or just wondering if there's any noise from that?
Yeah, I would say, absolutely not. I mean, these things are efficient. They're well designed, top of the line chargers. They get the job done. They charge your car fast, and you wouldn't even know they were there. They're quiet. They're safe. And when we design these sites, we ensure that, construction wise, everything is, absolutely done correctly, and safely, and that anybody can pull up and the interface is easy to use. Um, at our headquarters building here in Durham, North Carolina, we actually have 7, kind of test units that are set up in our laboratory space. And we have, a whole tech team and engineering team that work out there in the lab with these things all day long. And, there's no complaints about noise or heat or anything of the sort. So.
Okay, well, that was I assume that, but I wanted to hear it and
Yes, sir.
have it out there.
Absolutely.
The only other thing I had as far as this particular site is, would you, or have you considered in the past coming in with, say, 8 to 10 locations, just due to the size of this, and then perhaps expanding, putting 2 or 3 more units in later?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we like to plan, like I said, I touched on earlier, our real estate and site acquisition team. They score these sites based on an internal algorithm, and it'll kind of spit out a number or like a range. You should have 10 to 14 charging bays, and then we as designers, we obviously try to to maximize the site. If we're gonna spend the money to buy or lease the site, we want to maximize it and try to get our return. But in the event that 14, so 7 chargers was too much, I mean, we absolutely could work with you guys to drop it down, future proof the site, so future development is possible. But we really like to kind of deploy our sites with the maximum capacity in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you for the presentation. I got a couple questions, one for staff, perhaps one for you that has not been answered. But in terms of the zoning, Carrie, I mean, it's specific where it says gas stations and then it says motor fuels. You had it underlined and bolded. Does this qualify legally?
Yes, we ran that by the city attorney, and he agrees that it's a permitted use.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. You
First
had
thing
it
we
bolded
did.
and underlined, I assume, for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so electricity is motor fuel, essentially. And a gas station it doesn't have to have gas, apparently.
Not by our definition.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. It seemed a bit odd. So, and then in terms of, I think most questions have been answered pretty thoroughly for me to feel good about not having any more questions as such. But in terms of just in the site in general, some of these questions maybe touched on some maybe recommended site improvements? Have you guys explored what those might look like? Or do you just or are you open to whatever?
I would say for the most part, we're kind of open to whatever. Obviously, we have, internal design standards that we like to adhere to. And, obviously we want to build things, cost effectively. But, if there was improvements that, you guys at the city would really like us, to see, and, we would absolutely be open to, working with you guys and seeing if it's something that we could accommodate for sure.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll just open it to the rest of the group if you have now more like the feedback and recommendations. We can just kind of go down the line one by one.
Chair, I had one more very quick question, if
Yeah,
you don't mind.
you got it.
Director Teague, I know our wheelhouse is zoning and land use, but the regulations do say no automobile service station on a lot adjoining a lot in a residential district shall be operated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that seems to apply here. Where in this whole process does that come into play?
That is for an automobile service station where they're repairing cars.
says automobile service centers and gas station standards. Am I misunderstanding that?
So we can regulate that.
Looks like it.
That specific regulation just refers to a service station.
Oh, okay, so there's a difference. So that's when there's no gas, but just service.
Correct.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, let's proceed.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation and all of this feedback. I didn't necessarily have questions, but as an EV driver who doesn't have a fast charger at home, I'm excited that there's more and that there's interest from companies to get more opportunities. Just gonna, in no particular order, run through my notes and the thoughts that I jotted down while my fellow commissioners were speaking. I appreciated all of the concern about light pollution. I know some gas stations and other places of business that are open late have lights on, but they functionally dim down until they sense more motion. And I would encourage the applicant to look into ways of having that light pollution be reduced when the stations are not in use. If, the retro vibe that was shown with the larger canopy seemed very in the spirit of the Kevin Keyes yellow building, and I kind of liked and get that. If we were going to do a larger roof, I wondered if you had explored things like solar panels or something to continue to be part of that environmental message of the organization. I have some concerns about once a week or even once a day maintenance and cleanliness. Want to make sure that you guys know how to run your business, but wanting to note that that's a concern for everyone. And I actually disagree with my fellow commissioner, Commissioner Nelson. I hope there isn't a fence. I hope that if people are taking 20 minutes to fill up and it's a nice day, they want to get out and stretch their legs. I think that would be a great use of space. I would continue to encourage you guys to think about how to make the C-store more accessible and more available to local kids or local neighbors if they want to walk down the street and grab a milk. It's a big building that I appreciate that you guys are trying to reuse, but to be a neighborhood node, you want to serve the neighborhood, and I think that continues to really reinforce that connection and make it a desirable place to be. I go to the Target chargers a lot. They're slightly slower than what you guys are proposing, but I can fill up my car from, having 20 miles of gas in the tank left all the way up to basically a full charge in 20 minutes. If these are going to go even faster, just from a usability perspective, I would imagine you want something to draw me in. I can walk down the aisle to Target and go shopping, but what's going to make me come in and spend those extra dollars in the convenience store? I already mentioned lighting. Yeah, I would encourage you to build out the convenience store, make it continue to be something that people in the community want to engage with. I think my biggest concern might actually be that you mentioned that there was a ground lease. This site has been troubled and has struggled to find its purpose. I don't know if 14 pumps is the right number. Target has 6, and there's almost always one free, but you guys have the numbers. But I do want to make sure that whatever we're investing in this new age gas station and new age concept isn't just something that we're going to have to be revisiting in 5-10 years. I really want to make sure that it is part of that neighborhood node, because you only get that node feeling when you have continuity and history and decades of interaction with the space. So I just want to bring that to the forefront and say, I want this place, if it is a neighborhood node, to be a part of the community and to serve the community, not just for some people who have an electric car who want to charge quick.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
I agree with Commissioner Hanneman on her statements and want to add, if you decide to proceed with this, I would suggest a full canopy on one side only and maybe a mini canopy on the other. And in fact, I'm wondering if you eliminate the stations on the south and pull the north side away from the property line so you can put some vegetation like a living fence or arbor vitae or something that would help to block the light, because a 6-foot fence isn't going to cover a 15-foot canopy. So I'd rather see some dense greenery between the residences and the residential street and this. We also, or at a minimum, turn the south access, have the cars face east-west rather than north-south, so you can pull that northern canopy away from the property line. We also have a signage requirement that says no lights on signs between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., I believe. So so I want to add that to Commissioner Hanneman's statements about dimming the lighting at night. And I'd rather not have the lights go up and down. I'd rather have them go down at night and no lit sign. I mean, when you go to gas stations across the country, they're dimmer at night than they are during the day. And I definitely agree, especially the site, if there's trash cans. You had mentioned pet waste. In the summer, it gets hot and humid here. I'd want to make sure that that was attended to on a daily basis. Okay, those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I guess I don't have that many thoughts. I guess I just maybe have more of a question, and I'd be interested in the other commissioners' thoughts is, you know, if a comp plan amendment is needed, is neighborhood node the right category? It's just such an awkward spot for there to be a singular land use category for essentially one parcel that's this small. It's not really what a neighborhood node is really anywhere else. I'm not trying to make it complicated, but maybe we should just think about whether that's the right land use category, or, you know, if the plan should be amended in some other way, maybe more broadly. For example, if this is a place where a neighborhood node is going to be, should more than just this site should be guided that way? It just seems strange to have like such a small parcel within an otherwise residential area be neighborhood node, when like that, like the words that are used to describe what a neighborhood node is, kind of an active use serving predominantly the adjacent neighborhood, isn't likely to be totally accomplished with this use, just because it's kind of a little bit of an inactive use, focused more on, I think, people passing through, which is fine. But, you know, is there a different land use category that would be better? Is there a mixed use category that should be applied more broadly? It's just more just like a planning related discussion about what this area should look like. Just like in the event that, you know, a different use maybe comes in the future. So I haven't totally formulated an opinion on that, but I guess I'm thinking about it predominantly from that perspective.
I just wanted to say my neighbors, like, who are like in elementary school and they don't have phones, but I know in the summer they walk to the gas station like weekly. So if there was like any way to be able to get into the gas station or convenience store without a phone, because a lot of people don't have phones that would maybe want to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. We could definitely look into something like that. Maybe, you know, during normal business hours, you know, doors unlocked, anybody could go in. And then, you know, when, you know, after hours, like later at night, that's when it locks, and you need to have, you know, be able to scan the code and get in there.
Yeah, thank you for taking all the questions here and going through it. I think for me, Commissioner Hanneman kind of touched on a couple of things that I definitely agree with, which is, you know, once something goes here, we hope that it lasts a long time to really be part of the community. The business model for this just seems a little bit tough, you know, with low volume of vehicles, multiple bays, competitors like Target and other charging stations around. I'm just not super convinced that the long-term viability is there, even though the market would have more EVs coming through. The clientele would seem to me, based on just the discussion, to be folks that are not really local. It might be folks passing through, is kind of how I feel about it. And so for it to really be viable, I feel like there's a lot of things that would need to change. Of course, the impact to the community is really important, right? And we certainly want opportunities that are in sync and in rhythm with the residential neighborhoods that are around. Meaning it wakes up and it goes to bed around the same time like everybody else. And so it being 24 hours at night, just, you know, there's a conflict there to some degree, unless you could figure out how to ensure, you know, for a with no one there physically, but being monitored virtually, how do you ensure that the folks who pull up to charge is not going to create some disruption, right? And that's going to be a huge question. The ability for folks in the community to come through and use it, you know, the expectation is that if there's a convenience store, I run out of sugar and I'm in the middle of trying to bake something or make batter, I want to run out and get it quickly, right? And I want to be able to do that, and I don't need to have an EV to do that, right? And so just being open to the community to access it, and you know, as the student commissioner was just talking about, young kids are going to go there and they may not have a phone or they may not have certain things and they want to go in and pick up some candy bars or something, right? So it has to be flexible to allow that to happen, and the business model just seems really doesn't lend itself positively in that direction. It's more geared towards members of Iona and EV drivers, right? There's also the challenge of, you know, I'm driving through and I want to make a quick pit stop. The only spot I could park in is an EV charging spot, right? And so gas drivers might go into that location too, and we just got to be sensitive to that. And there's no way to prevent that from happening. Okay. So these are just some of the challenges, I think, honestly, with this. The positive thing I see, of course, is the forward thinking with this kind of technology. The convenience store component is always good, and having a food type spot in that location is what I think residents have been talking about. But folks also want calm, you know, simple operation that wakes up and goes to bed at a similar time as they do. To Commissioner, you know, Bornstein's question about neighborhood node, I think that's a good question, right? The first thing I thought about was, is Pluto a planet? Or is it something from the Oort cloud, right? Like, I'm cool with calling it a neighborhood node, even if it's a little bit smaller, you know? And so, not to make things too complicated, right? So that's kind of my take on that. I'm okay with that designation. But yeah, these are just some of my comments and feedback. So if you could package that into a proposal that gets close to that, you know, that would be good. But that could be really challenging given the model that you guys have. So that's my comments on that.
Understood. Thank you.
I have some concerns about, you know, being an absentee landlord, or, you know, running this from someplace else. And, you know, as others have said, you know, cleaning the bathrooms once a week is, you know, doesn't sound acceptable. to be perfectly blunt. So I'd like to see you up the maintenance and the cleanliness aspect of it. And then to that, kind of as a tangential concern, that this needs to be part of the community. So I don't know that Commissioner Smith's going to be able to get his sugar there. He might have to go to Quick Trip, which is a gas station, to get his sugar to bake. But I do think the convenience store, of the three that you laid out, probably, my strongest recommendation is that you go with the C-store option. I think having a tenant in there is going to cause all kinds of complications, whether it be parking or zoning or I think that's going to be, you're letting yourself in for a lot of complications for probably minimal benefit, I would guess. So again, and that also has to do with becoming more integrated into the community. I spent a lot of time in Southern California. In Southern California, you have to wait to get to a charging station often, so I'd like to see some signage to make sure that there's no waiting, which hopefully is, if more people drive these cars and you get more business, that's kind of might be a problem in the future. We haven't talked about this at all, but I'm assuming that there's two curb cuts, right? And that the traffic is going to go one way only one way in and one way out. Or that's something that needs to be looked at, or that's something I'm suggesting, that all the traffic go in one direction. But we haven't talked about it. And lastly, which I don't know whether or not you care about this, but just for Commissioner Bornstein, I have said since the day I came on this commission, one business does not a neighborhood node make. I don't think just because there's one thing there, it's a neighborhood node. So I'm completely in agreement with you on that, and I think we would have to, it's my feeling that we would have to call it something else. Those are my comments.
Just to build on that a little bit, I agree with the comments that have been made about it not feeling like a neighborhood node. So I looked at the other potential things you could call it that are already in the comprehensive plan. I looked at mixed-use center, I looked at community activity center, and none of them really feel any better because at the end of the day, I feel like the problem is not what it's called, but that it's only one parcel. So the only way you could make it fit would be to be the same as the parcels around it. So for me, that's at this point an unsolvable problem, and I think we're just gonna have to get used to calling it something that feels a little silly. I'd much rather have it be medium density residential, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards either. So at some point, I guess we have to move on. And so I'm in favor of a comprehensive plan amendment to make it neighborhood node, for the lack of a better thing to call it. For the applicants, I want to foot stomp the comments that have already been made about doing what you can to make this a community resource. I'm very concerned about light. So if the mini canopies can serve the customer well and also create less light, I would encourage that. And also the fact that it's a very small lot probably would make one lean in that direction anyway, but that's not an area of expertise for me. So just something to think about. Also very concerned about the 24-hour nature of it. The lighting and the 24-hour nature of it are allowed. So it's not that, that's what gas stations are. So that's the way it's gonna be. But I'd look for, I'd encourage you to find ways to minimize concerns of neighbors overnight from all kinds of things, whether it's noise or I don't know what kinds of things they would be concerned about. Or you would probably be in a better position to anticipate that than we would. That's it.
All right, I've already
Understood. Thanks.
I've already spoken quite a bit on this topic, and I'm not going to rehash the concerns I had. But I don't think there's a better use that we've seen so far. I mean, this is obviously almost a like-for-like use, and in my mind, it makes the most sense of anything we've seen. I'm encouraged by what you're showing here, and I think it would work. I think we just need to be cognizant of some of the things that we've discussed here tonight, and be obviously super, listen to the community as much as you can, because there's a lot of neighbors right there. And but being, Kevin Keys did have a gas pumps there a number of years ago. They've been removed quite a while back, but going from a gas pump to a electric pump seems like it makes sense to me. I don't really have a comment on the neighborhood node concept, but it seems like that's probably the way we end up going on that. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'll keep it short, and maybe I'll depart quite a bit. Just currently, I feel like maybe no matter what you could provide on this, I don't know if it'll get my support. I just find myself asking, like, it needs this, it needs that, it needs this exception, it needs this concession to, like, really win my support, especially compared to what has been proposed here previously. And again, this is a comprehensive plan amendment, so the reminder to all of us and to the community is, like, this has our utmost discretion to either make something work or make it, if it doesn't make sense to you, for a variety of reasons. I just feel like our comprehensive plan's bringing us a different way in the future, and at least in terms of what we're trying to solve with small area plans, is providing, say, neighborhood nodes, places for people to gather and come together. And a lot of what was presented previously did win majority support, but again, this will require a supermajority vote for the council to approve, so 4-1. And I just, for me, like, it's the chance to have a community gathering place here, even in the slightest, and this doesn't quite provide enough of that, even with the C-store option. I think, just kind of like Commissioner Smith mentioned, I mean, regardless if this is deemed a neighborhood node, it is a singular small site. So it seems like it ought to, at least in line with that, serve the adjacent neighborhood like is prescribed. This is a type of use that does not seem that it's serving primarily the adjacent neighborhood. I think most people there are charging at their homes, or they go elsewhere, like when they're shopping. And I think this is creating a national chain to build something to bring regional traffic through there. And I just don't see the business making sense otherwise. But if this does get supported, there are a variety of recommendations I have for the business and the site, some of which were echoed. If it were one of the three options, it'd be the C-store option I'd support. Limiting the hours instead of 24/7, opening it during the day to anyone, and then even figuring out, like, if a kid walks in, I mean, I guess they'd have to have a credit card too and walk in to get something to make it more accessible for people in the neighborhood to go and use it. In terms of the site, the navigation, previous proposals kind of heeded our advice and did what Commissioner Padilla mentioned. It was a one-way traffic starting on the west side to enter. So if for some reason you're re-entering the site, you're coming out and turning right without crossing traffic. Recommend that. Recommend, like other have proposed, an outdoor seating area, losing some of the backup for the hidden trash, but creating some sort of patio or outdoor seating space for people to enjoy a nice summer day versus sitting inside. This is the one block of Vernon that does not have a sidewalk on the north side. Every proposal previously has also provided a sidewalk. I don't see that at least drawn up, so I would fully expect others to, to kind of demand a sidewalk so that the rest of the block is connected. Right now, there's no sidewalk there, so how do you get to the site if by foot? So we need to build that. Other landscaping things that have come up on previous proposals that were very important during sketch plan and the final approvals, or denials, I should say, was like plenty of landscaping and buffer to that north side. So whether that is a fence or it's a fence with landscaping or both, however you can change the site to accommodate that would be important. And that is all from me. And I guess I'd support the mini canopies too, just to minimize the effect to the neighbors. Anything else anyone has? Well, thank you very much for your presentation, your interest in Edina, and good luck to you, I guess, harnessing our feedback and as well as the city councils. And if you're back to propose official application, look forward to seeing you then.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks everybody for taking the time. Look forward to working with you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, next we have sketch plan review again, number 2 for 4200 76th Street West. It's a retail warehouse drop-off for Salvation Army. Before we begin, I know one of the commissioners is likely going to bow. I just allow Commissioner Nelson to just.
Yeah, I need to step out for this one. I'm, just full disclosure, I'm on the advisory board for the Salvation Army of the Twin Cities, and have become aware of this project over the last 6 months and longer. So I'm just going to go sit in the audience at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Commissioner or Planner Teague, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chair, members of the commission. So this site's located in the Greater Southdale District. It's on 76th Street, west of France Avenue. It's right across the street from the new fire station. The proposal here is to remodel the existing office building there for an 18,000 square foot retail store and a 9,000 square foot warehouse for the Salvation Army. This project is unique, really unlike anyone that we've had before us in that the proposed use, a secondhand store that's larger than 2,500 square feet, is not allowed in any zoning district in the city. You could have a second-hand store, but it has to be smaller than 2,500 square feet. Not sure the reasoning that went into that, but nonetheless, that's the ordinance that's on the books. Additionally, retail sales as a primary use is not allowed in the industrial district. We do allow retail sales, but it's limited to no more than 10% of the square footage of a building, amongst other regulations. So this site, again, the current zoning of the site is PID Planned Industrial District, which allows light industrial and office uses. It's, well, before I move off this slide, so the speckled area is multifamily residential to the north. This purple site here, that's the Aon apartment building that was recently built. And then again to the south is the new fire station. It's guided in our comprehensive plan for office and residential use. So primary uses within that land use category are offices, attached or multifamily housing. Secondary uses include limited retail and service uses, not big box retail. This wouldn't be considered a big box retail. That's typically in the 20 to 50,000 square foot range. I wouldn't classify that as a big box. So the existing building shown on the screen here, that would just be remodeled. So the front of the building would be the 18,000 square foot retail with the warehouse at the back. You can see the circulation pattern for people that wanted to drop things off, could move through the building this way. Looking at our zoning ordinance compliance table for the PID district, putting aside the use issue, it would be compliant with all of our regulations there. Again, mostly existing conditions. So there's a lot of options for a formal application to discuss here. A rezoning, an ordinance amendment, and a comprehensive plan amendment. A rezoning of the site from PID to possibly a commercial zoning district with a zoning ordinance amendment that would allow secondhand stores to exceed 2,500 square feet in size. Could be a comprehensive plan amendment to allow retail sales as a primary use in that OR category in the comprehensive plan. So some of the things to consider, and we can leave this up as you're discussing, by the Planning Commission. Should retail sales, secondhand stores be allowed in the industrial zoning district as a primary use? Is the site appropriate for commercial and retail zoning? Should the comprehensive plan be amended to allow retail as a primary use in the OR district, in that OR land use category? And should the comprehensive plan be amended to re-guide the site for commercial land use? So there's a lot there. I could stop and answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, the applicant has a presentation as well.
Any quick questions for Carrie in regards to play-by-play to get there? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you all for coming. And I guess just to the applicant team, you can come up, introduce yourselves, and introduce the project. Happy to have you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Joe Becker with Carlson Partners, 6550 York Avenue, Edina. We're here along with Salvation Army to present this project, and just thank you guys all for being here this late. I know it's gotten quite up there now. But at the end of the day, at its core, this request is about redeveloping an underutilized and vacant building to evolve to better serve the present day community needs. From a community perspective, the surrounding area includes higher concentrations of residents who experience economic and transportation hardships compared to Edina city proper. So essentially, what we're trying to do is reinvest in the existing structure that supports sustainable development practices and ultimately is advancing a donation-based model. The Salvation Army, the proposed family store contributes to the vitality of the France Avenue corridor by activating the existing building, creating both full-time and part-time opportunities, and expanding affordability. I think right now it would make most sense, though, for Tom Canfield to come up and just share a little bit more about the Salvation Army's organization and the store's model itself.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing us to be here. My name is Tom Canfield, and I'm with the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center, and we're located in downtown Minneapolis in the North Loop. And the reason why I tell you that is because really what this is about is the rehabilitation center. We offer long-term rehabilitation, residential rehabilitation for people who struggle with drug and alcohol addictions, substance abuse, and all disaffiliation from society. And it's a free program. Anyone can come. Like someone could come there today and we would intake them into our program at no cost. There would be no insurance, no government funds. We fully self-fund the program. And how we fund this program is through the generous donations of people who give us clothes and household items and furniture, and we sell them in our thrift stores. We have had approximately tens of thousands of people donate from Edina into other locations, or we have driven our trucks to pick up donations from people in Edina. Edina is generous to the Salvation Army, and that's why we're here today, is because we would like to put a production and retail operation to serve the community of Edina, not only in a sustainable way, but also to help people who suffer from addiction. If you have any questions for me, I'm able to answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thanks for coming tonight. Just was curious, I I think Value Village is an ARC facility at Penn and 66, or is that not related to you?
That's not related to us.
Okay,
That's another great organization that does the same industry, though.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, is that all for the presentation, just to be clear?
Yeah, I think for us, we're really trying to just open a conversation and a dialogue with all of you guys here today to kind of just see how we can get a Salvation Army family store within the city of Edina. Particularly, this site is of great interest to us, given a lot of the economic factors around it.
Before we open it up to questions, could you just speak to kind of the history of this site? And again, maybe in terms of like reiterating why this site is the best site for this?
Yeah, from a history perspective on the building itself, it was formerly occupied by LVC, which is a fire protection company. LVC has since vacated over a year ago, and since then the site has sat vacant. For us, as the Salvation Army, we've been targeting the city of Edina for quite some time now. And as we look at the city of Edina as a whole, there's a lot of higher cost retail centers that are out there. And we would love to go into those, but oftentimes there's the cost barrier as well as a second zoning kind of restriction that's not actually zoning, but landlord use restrictions tied to the use itself. So as we're trying to navigate both that and zoning ordinances, this has been a site that has kind of come up as greatly of interest to us. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it just tees it up also. Really appreciate the presentation and your interest. I'll just open it to fellow commissioners for questions, comments, feedback for staff and for you. Just maybe we'll save the feedback for the end, kind of like the last one. Just stick to questions and general comments right now. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is just more around the operation and, you know, what to expect in this location. There was a great map that was up before that shows the traffic pattern. I don't know if Director T or someone could share that particular slide. Here we go. Yeah. So if I'm looking at this carefully here, there is some crossover at the opening of that site there. You see where the red and the green lines kind of cross over, but that, you know, hopefully, I'm assuming that's not going to be too much of an issue. But what's the volume you guys would project here? The amount of cars that would be coming through. And I ask that because the fire station is right across the street, right? And that road could get quite busy sometimes. And if we have more moving through traffic, it could create just more volume on that street. It might create some potential congestion. So just what are your thoughts on the amount of vehicles you would expect to come through on a daily basis during your working hours?
Yeah, I would defer to the Salvation Army from an actual vehicles per day, but from the actual stacking plan that we are projecting here, we actually kind of came in with a more conservative approach and added more cars than we projected to ever be within the stacking plan to potentially alleviate any sort of concern around blocking in the road for the fire station.
The donation center would operate from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the evening, and we would expect approximately on average 50 cars per day. We also, our main location in downtown Minneapolis is adjacent and next door to a fire station right now. We have no issues working with them. They're some of our best customers, to be honest with you. And, but we have great communication with them. We've seen no issues with our traffic impeding on what they need to do.
Gotcha. And I'm comparing this to the Goodwill site in St. Louis Park. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that site. But sometimes it takes so long to drop something off and get through there. But is this going to operate very similar, where someone has items to donate, they drive through, the doors open, they remove it, and they may get like a card to say I've donated, and then they leave. So that cycle time is usually like, what in your estimation would that be? How long would someone sit to donate something and then exit the site?
Currently, our busiest donation center receives about 500 donors per week, so that's under 100 cars per day. We've seen in that location, it has 2 doors to drive through. So wait times can be 3 to 4 cars stacked at one point, maybe 5 minutes to wait. We would stack all cars in the parking lot of the building, not on the street, not in traffic ways, and we don't anticipate that there would be any congestion on 76th.
Thank you. Just one more question. The retail space, what's the range you would say of products being sold? I'm guessing it's not just clothing, but it might be housewares, it might be, very similar to like a Goodwill site, right? So anything that is in there, not food usually. No food, okay. So that's regular retail, similar to our Goodwill type retail facility.
We try to operate at 60% of our income, 50 to 60% being wearables or clothing. We would offer all array of household items, from pots and pans to dishes, electronic kitchen items, things like that. Shoes, domestics, linen, bedspreads, things like that, furniture, and accessories, shirts and ties, hats and purses, bags, things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I might have you come back up. Can you tell me about the relative size of this one versus the one down at the gas station or some of your others? And if this size would affect how, could you have more household goods or furniture here versus clothing? I mean, that's what I want to get a feel for, like how you would use this one versus some of the other ones.
The size of the building is exactly what we're looking for. We like between 25 and 27,000 square feet. Reason being is we need to have an area of production. So when items come in, they get separated by department. We have multiple people processing in those locations. This sits at would not be our largest store, but it would be in the top 1/3 of large stores. Our closest store in Bloomington is 18,000 square feet total, has 13,000 square feet on a show floor. So this would significantly increase the amount of items that we could offer. Okay. And our background studies of where our donors come from, and there's so many people donating from Edina that we would expect that we just offer more product. Simply.
Okay, thank you. Before you sit down, can I ask another question? I didn't want you to have to do gymnastics here. Operationally, can you tell me a little bit about how you cull your inventory as it ages, and how you keep the quality of the products attractive enough so that you are still getting the clientele to come and shop the way you'd like?
It's a broader multi-store business scheme, okay? So when donations come in and they're processed and they're put on the floor, processing simply means that it's sellable, it's usable for someone, and then we place a color tag on that item. And we operate in 5 different colors, so that for 4 different colors on the floor at one time. So for 3 weeks, it's offered at full price, then it goes to half off, and we hope to sell it in that location. If it does not sell, it's pulled off sales floor. It's moved to a location downtown that sells by weight to the public at $1.69 or $1.89 a pound. And if it doesn't sell there, it may get moved to another thrift store. Our whole objective is to place these items at a good cost into people's hands who need them or would use them, because really the antithesis to thrift is doing what the donor didn't do, would be throwing it away. Our biggest competitor really isn't Goodwill or Ark Value Village. Our biggest competitor is the landfill. More people are throwing shoes and clothes into landfills, and we happen to be able to keep millions of pounds of that out of the landfill every year. So it's a rotation of product. We're very diligent about the rotation. Thousands of items come to onto the show floor every day in one location. At minimum in this location would be 3,000 new items every day. I hope that answers your question.
No gymnastics, please. So just a follow-up question there. I love how Commissioner Hanneman touched on that. Just to share a little bit more on the percentages, right? So not everything that gets there is going to get sold right away. So you might be getting more inventory than you have exiting the site being sold, right? And I'm guessing that excess inventory either has to get shipped to another location or, frankly, moved away in a garbage truck, right? What is the flow of or storage of things that you want to throw away, and how does that get managed? Like, how many times would a truck or a garbage truck or a service vehicle pass through the site to remove things that wouldn't sit at this location?
The way we operate the business right now, we don't have any garbage trucks who come to any of our stores. Most of what we get donated ends up in a retail setting or in a by-the-pound setting or an e-commerce setting. Now, with that being said, there are items that come that are broken that we cannot use. They get loaded onto one of our trucks and get taken into downtown Minneapolis, where we have a much more efficient system to handle garbage.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Question, yeah.
I had just a couple. So, how come the model is to have the warehouse attached to a retail, or like not attached to, but like a warehouse and a retail operation in one structure? I mean, if stuff's, especially if product's getting rotated all around different locations. I'm just curious, because it seems like that creates some issues with like the zoning code and the comp plan and everything like that we're bumping into. Sure. Why is it that that's the model, as opposed to, like, there's a drop-off center one place and then there's a retail location somewhere else? I'm just curious.
Simply transportation costs.
Okay.
We had that model years ago in the 70s, a little bit before my time, and everything was processed in downtown Minneapolis. And unfortunately, fortunately, thrift has evolved so much since then. And people demand a higher quality product. They demand a wider variety of product. And certain cities and certain customers who visit our stores like certain things. To give you an example, hunting gear sells really good in Elk River. It's not so much in downtown Minneapolis. So the community gives up what the community wants. We avoid transportation costs, and we get to control the quality much better when it comes out onto the floor. We have local people from that community who work in the store. They understand what the community wants. They can respond to the community needs better. To the zoning point, it is only Edina that we're struggling with the zoning. Everywhere else, we've opened a store. Everywhere we've tried to open a store, there's been not the use restrictions that we're seeing here, and that's
Okay.
why we're here tonight.
Got it. And then what are some of those landlord use restrictions that you said?
Sure.
Just
So-
that
so-
you bump into when you try to go into other spots?
Yeah. All around Southdale, everywhere. And built into their leases, there's a clause that says, in this building, no resale. And
Okay.
typically that's because they're selling the same brands, brand new, and we're selling them used at a much discounted price, and they
Okay.
don't want the competition.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Great questions. Any other questions, either for staff or the applicant? All right, I guess we'll just maybe go down one at a time, just general feedback if you have any. We'll start this way.
All right, I'll start.
You got it.
First, thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for all that you do for people. It's really important, and I appreciate that a lot. This was a really interesting one, and it is a surprising amount of use diversity in the area around this parcel. I've driven through it 1,000 times, and it never even struck me until you look at some of the materials that were provided in the package and say, wow, that's really different, and it's in an industrial district. But and there's some things that don't seem very industrial, really. But then when you dig into our code, you find that planned industrial district allows anything that's allowed in a planned office district, and that's how some of those things come about, and that's why it's so diverse. But the important thing that I learned was that all of it that we see around this parcel today is allowed under our current zoning. They're not anomalies, they're just the way we've chosen to develop that area. I think a person might have a different opinion about, like if you really wanted to preserve industrial, which I think we do as a city, you might have a different zoning code than we do right now, because we're allowing a lot of things to seep into industrial districts. But that's the way we've set it up. So as much as I admire the work of this organization, I just don't see a rationale or a benefit to the city to rezone or change a comprehensive plan for this one parcel. I just can't find a way to do it, as much as I admire the work that you do. Thanks.
I think this is an example of, a round peg in a square hole kind of a thing. This is a one-off project compared to what we usually do. I support it, however, because I think that because it is a one-off and it kind of doesn't fit. I think it's good use of this particular property. I think the driving pattern, what you've delineated here is kind of the best that it can be. There's so many adjacent properties in this. This is a changing neighborhood, which has all kinds of different zoning to begin with in a quarter-of-a-mile radius, number one. Number two, that we've got a lot of buildings in there that are, 60 years old? 70 years old, that, as much as we keep the zoning in mind, and that's where we are starting our thoughts from, we need to also be thinking about what's happening with this neighborhood, what's happening with these properties. So I think this is a good use of the property, and you've got a great start here. But last thing, I think we need to just make sure that it is not spot zoning and that isn't any kind of an issue. So I don't know if we need to just look at that more, and I don't know if there's anything we can do. And I'm kind of gun shy on the spot zoning thing because of what's gone on. But I think we need to be comfortable around the spot zoning issue.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and answering all of our questions. This is a tough one because on the one hand, I do think the model works for this location, the economics, the location, the site, it makes sense. And I don't think there is a thrift store donation set up close by in Edina. I think the closest one for me, at least, I go to St. Louis Park. And I'm there all the time. In fact, I might be going there tomorrow because it's in my car today. A lot of shirts and everything. So I think that it makes sense. I think too, the location makes sense. The one thing I'm not clear about is the reason why we have industrial zone and the rest of the city is that the business cycle is a little bit different in an industrial type location than a regular retail location. When the market kind of goes down in one area, you want to have your industrial zone production keep afloat so it could help balance out any kind of shifts in the market, right? This was a manufacturing site from what I could tell before, and so that kind of made sense for this location, right? But now that they have left, we have no revenue generation coming out of this site, right? So that's kind of a huge gap, and it can be put to good use. This actually makes sense for this location, the use case, the business case, and frankly, residents of Edina would be really good clientele because of the quality, and that's why Green Drop was even looking at that same site we were talking about earlier, right? It's because the quality of the material that they get to resale is of a high value, and so the return on investment is pretty good. The challenge, of course, now for us is to think through what is the impact of allowing this here and the rest of this region, right? If we allow commercial in this area. And we don't want spot zoning, but I don't see how else we could make this work if we don't do some kind of spot zoning type of a situation. Unless we open up the entire region, then that could create more questions, right? Some folks who, you know, unless you're buying chocolate, right? Other sites would start doing retail in that area, which might cause some kind of imbalance over time. And so I like the business. I like the model. I'm trying to think about how could I make this work given the current zoning. I'm leaning towards something that could make exploring more how the zoning could work for this site. And I don't know the technical details of how to do that in the right way, but I'm really positive on what you guys are trying to do in this location. And so that's kind of what I have at this time.
Yeah, kind of similar initial reactions as everybody else. Really worthy business. Super interesting, actually. Thanks for describing how it worked. I learned a lot about something I didn't know anything about before you came here. I think I don't know exactly how I feel about all the different options you laid out yet, Gary. I think there were 4 of them. They're all different. Each one involved some, kind of complex, maybe planning changes. In general, I think the tough thing about these types of proposals is it puts us in and with the other one too, I just don't love the idea of like planning being reacting to single proposals from businesses that we think are like the most worthy ones out there, and then doing these sort of like one-off planning cartwheels to either change the comp plan on one side or change the zoning or to make it work because we love the business and we think it would be good for the city to have. That's just where I'm struggling. I think it would be better it seems like maybe this area needs a second look. Is there a way to simplify either the code or does the comp plan need to be changed in a way more broadly to make it easier for people to kind of just come in there generally? So I don't have an opinion yet about which one of the paths you laid out might work or whether I'd support that or not. Just in general, prefer to not do planning by reacting to single proposals and then just like trying to change the zoning or the comp plan on a one-off basis. Interesting to hear that you're not bumping into other planning restrictions though elsewhere. That's interesting and I think worth giving some additional thought to as to why you're bumping into those in Edina. Also, the structure is like super industrial looking to me. It doesn't it's like off the street. There's this like this moonscape of a parking lot that kind of wraps around it. It's kind of an ugly building. It doesn't have great windows. It doesn't have an awesome street presence. In some ways, like it's not the best structure for a retail operation, and it makes sense that it's not because it wasn't designed to be that in the first place. So I don't have a fully formed view that I think considering something proposed by you guys is going to require a lot more planning thought, but kind of torn between super worthy business would be great to have. It's annoying to have to sit in that line by the LA Fitness. I mean, that is awful. Every time, that thing's the worst. And when it's icy, it's even worse. You should have seen how many people just crashed into each other at that spot about 2 weeks ago. And it would be great to have something like this in Edina. We just have to be, I think, a little bit more thoughtful about changes that we make to the zoning or the comp plan, to maybe do it in a more comprehensive way that makes it easier for people to come in instead of just being reactive. So initial reaction, I think before you come back the next time, we'll give more thought to the specific options and have a view about which one might be best, if there's one that would work.
I also think you're a very worthy business and appreciate everything you do. I've always wondered why Edina doesn't have a thrift store. I've been thrifting for like 50 years, and I think a lot more people are as well. And a lot more people are interested in that closed loop cycle system, and not just for thrift, but as a way of life. So I don't understand why Edina isn't a part of that too, and why we can't find a way to kind of make that happen here. I was just in a place with my daughter over the holidays where we were walking down streets, and there was Bye Bye the Bag right next to a cafe, right next to a magic store, right next to, I mean, there's no difference. I don't see now why there's a difference between retail and secondhand. I think society has changed so much that in the past 50 years that there's no difference between the two. So I think it's how do we get retail into an industrial area. We do have an industrial area that we want to keep, which is Cahill. This one has changed a lot. The Fred is there. There's a lot of apartments building there. There are a lot of young kids living in these apartment buildings, and you know, it's not just the affordable housing. There are a lot of people that are struggling to make ends meet and would rather spend, you know, $10 or $20 or $25 on a sweater than $200 on a sweater. So I would love to figure out some way to make this happen here, because I don't see why it isn't. And, you know, like right across the street, there's an LA Fitness just like there is here, and just used for a gym, and this could just be used for retail. And I don't know. I would love to find some way to make this happen. So I support it.
Carrie, did you want to elaborate on the comment earlier about commercial districts?
Well, I think the comment was they're having trouble finding a commercial property in Edina. I haven't done any research, but from my experience, it seems most Goodwills, Salvation Armies are located in commercially zoned districts, not industrial. So I think that's the issue there.
Well, I did do a little bit of research, because when I read that a secondhand retailer can't exist anywhere in our city if it's over 2,500 square feet, I bristled at that seemed very privileged in a biased way that I didn't like. One of the things that we don't do currently that I think some of our neighboring cities do is we don't allow less intense uses in in zone districts. So we don't allow certain kinds of commercial in industrial. We don't allow residential in commercial. And I had a couple of questions for Carrie, really. Is a PUD an option here, or can we just say secondhand as a category is allowed in industrial without opening the can of worms of office commercial?
Yeah, to me, it does open a can of worms. Say we were to amend the ordinance to allow secondhand stores in the industrial district. Well, as on the screen here, it's an 18,000 square foot retail store. If another retailer that doesn't sell secondhand goods wants to go into the industrial district, is there a real distinction between the operation is the same, whether they're selling new clothes or new items or secondhand?
Does the warehouse or the job creation training program give us a different angle than, I don't know, if Gap wanted to go in there?
Well, that could be the challenge. Say a Gap wants to go in there, city, you allow secondhand stores, it's a retail business. How is that really any different?
I mean, because they can go in commercial.
Right.
And right now, this can't go anywhere.
Correct. As I said in the staff memo, staff would support amending the ordinance to allow secondhand stores of any size in a commercial district. That this might be, we've had a lot of discussion about this whole OR area. This would be a great area for us to look at when we start the comprehensive plan, likely next year. Maybe this whole area gets labeled something different, where this type of retail uses might be appropriate in this area, because it is different from the industrial park over in Cahill.
So how are the other office uses or commercial uses? In LA, I'm just looking at one of the slides, the LA Fitness or Pristine Detail, there's an eyelash place. How do those work in industrial functionally differently?
Yeah, because they are listed as a permitted use. Fitness facility, those are permitted uses in the office district, which translates to the industrial district.
And so across the parking lot, there's a med spa, and that's allowed because it's
Medical.
It's medical.
I don't know the exact uses that are going on there, but
It seemed to be more, when you went on the website, more of a salon.
I don't know that business. So
Okay.
I can't. How they got in there.
Yeah, I think we all sort of agree that this seems like a good use of the space. Within that one block, you've got POD1, POD2, PUD, and PID, and a bunch of different uses. It feels like maybe this is a crafting of allowed uses dilemma versus a zone. I mean, I guess to the spot zoning comment earlier, I don't understand why it can't stay industrial and preserve that as the underlying zoning and have a warehouse and the manufacturing of products from the trash can that they got, or the garbage bag that they got brought in into onto this, to the
That's
shelf.
one of the options that they could pursue.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Really appreciate all of you being here tonight. This is something definitely the community is lacking and likely desires. Could you bring up the slide with the map that Commissioner Hahnemann was mentioning that shows all the variety of the uses around the site? Yeah, they're right there. Yeah, if you look at this, well, keep this one up. This is the one I want up. If you look at this as well as the zoning map, there is quite a mixture of zoning right around this area. Yet it seems pretty common that like most of these things highlighted are like retail or service in some way, where you're going there and using a service. Where like the use that's proposed in the nature it's proposed seems to fit right in line with all of this stuff. I think just in general, caution against spot zoning, that would be like if that Kevin Keys site were residential and we want to turn it into a restaurant or a gas station, like something by itself, out of the blue, nothing else around it relative to it. Here we have a variety of different zoning and uses that all kind of match the guidance, at least as far as I'm concerned, with the comprehensive plan and how we want this area to unfold. It's breathing new life into older buildings, and so I'd support it that way. And then I guess in response to kind of, the unfortunate nature of like us reacting to this, I think this is actually like a perfect reason why we exist. I mean, our zoning has these weird anomalies within it. And unless you're super proactive and might know that, hey, we need some more secondhand stores in the city of a certain size, I don't think anyone's really thinking ahead of that until someone's trying to propose it and is coming up against a wall. I guess in terms of that, we don't know the history of the rationale, but the 2,500 square feet is similar to like the size of this room that we're sitting in. So it's a pretty small space. So whatever that was geared for, it doesn't seem, at least to any one of us that would have discretion to make these changes, like relevant anymore. Maybe someone could find a rationale behind it, but I think whatever you would have to do most, I guess, easily from like a planning perspective, like what makes us the cleanest, will be something I support. And I guess one thing to think about is anytime we make these changes to a particular zone, is it applies indefinitely and like basically applies over all the existing zones that has that too. So we just have to be aware, like whatever we change, it isn't just for this site, it's for all future and current sites too. So I don't see an issue with expanding the retail store sizing over 2,500 square feet and just not having a limit. But you have a bunch of different options, like what does staff really feel like is the best one? So we can kind of leave on a note of a little more unity than.
Yeah, this is a difficult one because I'm not sure staff would support any of those options. We'd have to look into it in a little more detail. To address the spot zoning issue, one of the criteria is creating a land use that dramatically reduces the values of properties around it. This would dramatically increase if you're going to allow retail in that district. So we might be able to get around that spot zoning issue if we were to rezone that to a commercial use. It's possible.
And then I guess we would just want to be prepared with what type of, relevant changes might be accommodated with that elsewhere. Like, what is that opening the door for that we just need to be prepared for?
Yeah, it would be more for this district, and for the comp plan, we could amend that to allow retail as a primary use. It doesn't, in making that change, it doesn't obligate the city to rezone a parcel to commercial if you don't think it's a good fit. So that might be the cleanest path. I don't want to guarantee that would be the staff recommendation, but might be a path. Would be to amend the code to allow the secondhand stores at any size not have that limit. Rezone the site to some type of commercial, assuming we're not creating a spot zoning issue. and then amend the comprehensive plan to allow retail uses as a primary use in the office residential land use category in the comprehensive plan.
That's the part where you confuse me. Why do we have to do that in the comp plan if it's commercial? Why do we have to amend the office residential?
Because right now, retail as a primary use is not allowed in the office residential land use category in the comp plan.
Because this is in the Southdale district, could we do that just for the Southdale district and not
It would.
others?
Yeah, so the office residential, there is also land guided office residential in other, Lincoln London Dairy is an area where it's office residential. So it would have impacts there. That's why we need to really think this through.
Certainly. And just, I mean, logically to any resident who might be looking at this area, like if that was Salvation Army right now and you look at all the uses around it, it just doesn't stand out as something that, why is this here? I don't see it. And some of that is like rectifying the code. Like some of this is complicated because of the provision of not a secondhand store over a certain size, not retail as a primary use. So I mean, it's the nature of their business, and like it gets back to the comprehensive plan of like what we're trying to accommodate in the city is, you know, more mixed use. I mean, when you think of what this is, it's like a production facility and a retail facility. That's kind of like what we're trying to accommodate in our city. And we don't necessarily have the best zoning to reflect something like this cleanly. So it's going to be messy no matter what. Yeah.
You know, just to add to that, right, like if we think down the road, and this turns out to be commercial and we allow commercial as a primary use, you know, let's just say LA Fitness doesn't do so well and Gap wants to come into that location, then they would be allowed to do that, right? To create complete commercial in a much larger site than what's there. So from an impact perspective, right, we just got to think about what if scenarios, right? What if this happens with these current businesses and new things coming in that's now purely commercial? How does that change the nature of that region?
I guess that's why I'm still like in my brain struggling that a secondhand store feels akin to sort of a brewery that sells their product as well, right? They're sort of taking something and really repackaging it for consumption in a different way than a Gap would, where, right? I guess to me the warehouse component and the sorting and that there's something there that feels different than Southdale commercial or 50th and France commercial.
It's just the retail is larger than the bottling or packaging, you know.
A lot of retail does well when it has a lot of foot traffic. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're looking for a red sweater, you're going to go
to the mall.
Yeah, to 5 different stores until you find the right red sweater. People that do thrift here in the U.S. versus other countries, like have to go to the place. And for me, having the thrift store next to Southdale is just the best ever because it's closing the loop for everybody that shops there. Having that end, having that stuff be able to recycle somewhere within the community close by, I don't know. For me, it's a good fit.
I guess one quick question, Carrie, as we're going through the comprehensive plan update coming soon, as well as like zoning cleanup or just the code. I mean, has there been some different type of zoning designation that's like one version of that one of these consultants have seen that kind of speaks to this kind of multi-use where it's like PCD 5 and it has this specific thing? I'm just asking because this seems like a common thing you would see elsewhere, and what is limiting this in our city is purely the size of the secondhand store.
It is.
I mean,
And
the
as well
initial
as those-
part of it,
As well
yeah.
as those private
Yeah.
covenants that
Yeah.
seem to be out there. Yeah, as I mentioned, staff would definitely support the doing away with the 2,500 square foot rule.
Okay. Commissioner Alkire.
I just feel the need to clarify something really quickly. My concern was not about the 2,500 square feet thing. I totally agree that that's something that we should change. It doesn't make sense to distinguish between that and other forms of retail. My concern was about zoning this parcel commercially, different than everything that's around it.
So can you,
That's staff's concern as well.
can you speak a little bit about
Commissioner Haneman's idea of allowing lesser uses in an industrial?
Allowing retail uses.
less intense uses in a industrial?
Light industrial.
That's another possibility. But it opens it up for other retail uses.
The clarifying question, like in some ways, this map shows less intense uses in an industrial zone because office, I mean, that's probably why office is allowed in industrial because it's typically a less intense use. So what other, I mean, retail can be less intense. It could also be much more intense. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just asking for a clarification.
Yeah, no, I guess the retail is the linchpin word. If you lump this kind of business model in with all other retail business models.
The concern staff has is, industrial property, office property is generally not as expensive as commercial properties. If we open it up for retail uses in those districts, the retailers will come because we get a lot of calls about, can this type of business open up in the industrial district or the office district? We get a lot of those calls.
So can I ask, because a part of this business is the taking of goods and separating them and sorting them and preparing them for retail, the warehouse part of this?
They could go in there today without the retail.
Okay, but that part of it is different than other retail stores.
Yeah, where's the definition of retail? Flat out.
I would have to look that up. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think we've had a lot of discussion about this, and I don't know if we've given a lot of ideas.
Well, it seems like it's maybe nothing that has to do with the applicant team, correct?
No, it's about what's the cleanest way to fix the problem that, this type of applicants having a hard time finding a place to be in our city, and then also what would be all the other consequences, intended or not, of the type of cartwheels we might need to, do to change things around if you're talking about changing zoning, changing the comp plan, and amending ordinances, just to make so what does the blast radius look like across this area of the city? And I just don't think we know the answer yet. So that analysis could probably be done on like what the one or two cleanest options would be, and that would maybe inform the discussion a little bit. But
the cleanest way to do it is through the comprehensive plan and looking at the entire district and looking at the ordinance. This one-off trying to make this fit is difficult. But we can
another
take a look
area
at it.
of the city that deserves another look from a comp plan perspective has been identified, it sounds like.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? I guess I'd just encourage staff to keep looking at it, especially in preparation for city council, to look at this. Maybe if there is something cleaner, they might have some other feedback or something we haven't thought about. Anything else, anyone? No? Thank you. Good luck. Hope it works out. Hope to see you again soon. All right, that is it for our 2 reports and recommendations. Then on to chair and member comments. Commissioner, you can join us. Any comments by Commissioner Felt?
I just wanted to mention, a few months ago, I was at dinner at the Galleria, and then I drove around the north side of the Our House, which was the remodel. We did that setback variances for the Our House, but I drove around at night. We put that additional road in between the underground parking and the parking lot outside of Big Bull, if Big Bull is still there. No, is it Big Bull? I don't know.
Pittsburgh Blue?
No, on the north side.
Oh, okay.
But it really opened up, all of the glass really opened up, makes it for a very friendly facade, and it was very easy to navigate around the north side, and I thought that turned out really well. So I'm glad that that happened.
Thanks for sharing. It's always good to revisit, changes, whether they're fully supported or not. It's good to see good change happen. Any other comments? Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, just a quick comment based on the last review we just did. As we go into this comp plan review process, we're going to have to talk about a lot of what-if scenarios, and I'm not sure if the city has resources or anything that can help with modeling what the future would look like if we take certain paths. That would be really super valuable to say if we make this decision this way, here's what a future city would look like in this path. Because it's just going to be what we think at the time, right? I'm just thinking about how can we model what the future would look like based on decisions today. And I know that's really hard to say and to think about, but I can't think really clearly about if we make a decision today, what is that going to look like tomorrow, right? Retail, for example, if we change the whole area, what does that look like tomorrow without some kind of model?
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Staff?
Just quickly, the update from council. So the daycare that you considered at your last meeting, that has not gone to council yet. That goes next week, so they'll hold the public hearing, and then they'll make a decision February 3rd. The last announcement is Liz Olson, our administrative specialist. Today was her last day. She's gone back to her former employer. So we wish her the best in her position. She's going to be tough to replace.
Certainly.
Any update on the Macy's property? They pulled permits yet, or have they
They
closed?
have not closed on the property yet.
Dun, dun, dun.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.
That was a long, what, you okay?
Yeah, I just realized we didn't even acknowledge everything. I know.
I know.
2 more people shot today, during our meeting.
Here in Minneapolis?
Yep, not non-fatal. Was the
Here
last I read.
in the Twin Cities.
In Minneapolis. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Went faster than I thought it was. We started at like 8:45. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this.
No, because I drove this morning